Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Purposeful Wisdom Podcast. I am Dawn Christine. I am the host of this podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with me today. As you know, my ultimate goal is to provide you guys with tools from the best experts that I can find out there to just have more tools in your toolbox to help you guys grow as individuals, as parents, as spouses, as anything and everything. So I have the privilege of talking to some amazing professionals in their respected fields to just help you guys grow. And without further ado, I am so excited to bring you Miss Joy Bartholemew today. After Joy's divorce, she found herself at a crossroads, unsure of her next steps. And somewhat eat, pray, love moment, this 47-year-old mother of teenagers and police officer embarked on a transformative journey to a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. This experience marked the beginning of a profound exploration into reshaping her life post-divorce, identifying the person she aspired to become, and seeking out new adventures. 7 years ago, the concept of coaching was foreign to her, but now Joy is passionate about helping women effectively manage their emotions, navigate the complexities of divorce, co-parent more successfully, venture into the world of dating, and excel in single motherhood. Her ultimate goal is to empower these women with confidence and grace, enabling them to maintain their integrity and rediscover their faith. Joy aspires to be the invaluable resource for women that she herself longed for during those challenging times she coped with so imperfectly. Joy, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
For that amazing introduction. And I'm so happy to be here with you today. I think that this is going to be a great conversation because there's so much to dive into.
Absolutely. And for those of my viewers that don't know, I am a newly single divorcee as well with children. It's been about 2 years now. So I really love the fact that I have your expertise on here, and I'd love to just dive right in because there's so many complexities of divorce. Where do you even begin? Especially being a woman. Where do you even begin?
And that's so hard because our first thought, like we're going through all of this drama, we're going through all of these emotions ourselves. And then as moms, we've got these little people who are going through their own drama and their own emotions. And then you shelve yourself to help them. And then you have to kind of put that aside to start working on yourself. And then there's the papers and the emotions and the complex, like it's so overwhelming. And I really think that, everybody finds their own starting point on where they want to go and what they want to do. But I think that we really need to take stock, slow down a little bit. Like this divorce does not have to get done overnight. You don't have to necessarily find a new place to live overnight. You can take this at your pace. And I think what happens is we get on this even faster hamster wheel of trying to
Yes.
get through this. And I have to clarify these emotions immediately. No, you don't. No, you don't. Slow down, slow the whole process down and take the time you need because it's not going to happen overnight. The divorce isn't. Neither is that healing process. Neither is working with your kids. And we want to hurry up and get it done or hurry up and get to the next stage. But I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is we need to just slow down and take care of ourselves, take care of your kids, take care of what's going on and what's important, finding those things that have to be done today, have to be a part of your life. But in the season, I found myself in this season of saying yes to everything because it was a distraction. It was a distraction from my feelings. It was a distraction from the emotions, from the divorce, from all of it. And I was filling it with all of these things that meant nothing.
Mhm.
This is the time to slow down. You don't need to do the bake sale. You don't need to be the coach's assistant. You don't need to be the science fair person. You don't need to be on the committee at church. Stop the insanity, bring it down, and do those basics well. Get back to the root of things And once you can kind of bring that into a place of new normal, into some normalcy, into some kind of a routine that everybody is okay with, then you can start adding on those things and moving forward. But you got to get rid of all the crazy that's going on in your life and get to what's important. That's you, that's your kids, and that's really finding this new family centric place for you guys to be.
Absolutely. And I love how you stated that way because we tend to distract ourselves anything but what we have to feel. We don't go there to the
Ooh,
roots of things because it is hurtful, it is painful, especially and it really doesn't matter whether you were married for a short time or a long time. When you have kids, it's a completely different dynamic because there are emotions other than yours and your now soon to be ex-partner. There's children involved. So I feel like for me, especially, it was my mindset was always on, well, what are the kids going to think? What are the kids going to think? And you tend to forget that you have to kind of, and it's not selfish, you have to put you first and get your mind right so that you're able to take care of the emotions that your kids are going through because it is traumatic. They were, used to this family dynamic for however long it lasted. And now all of a sudden, there's a breakup, there's a shift of the family dynamic here. And they're going, like you said, through their own emotions of why is this happening? Anger, all these things. And you kind of get absorbed in so much just try to distract yourself from what's really in front of you. So I love the fact that you said to slow down and really take everything in and go step by step, and nothing has to be done overnight. So I love that. What do you feel single mothers should do when it involves for me especially, like, and I know other mothers feel this, there's a sense of shame and guilt around the entire dynamic of divorce, especially when you have kids, because on one hand, at least for me, I always felt that, I'm not going to be that cliche woman to stay together for the kids, for the sake of the
mhm.
kids, because I truly felt that they're not going to learn anything in this dynamic. I have to show my kids that especially that I have both, I have a boy and a girl. I wanted to show my
Mhm.
daughter this is not acceptable for women to embrace and be in, and to show my son that women shouldn't have to put up with this, that you are to treat a woman with respect and dignity and honesty. So at the same time, like, I knew I was being an example, but there was this sense of guilt and shame for the emotions that they were involved in. How do
Mhm.
women go about doing this? How do you let go of that guilt and shame so that you can really embrace your single motherhood with your kids?
There were so many things that you just said there, and I'm like taking them off in my head. Like leaving a bad relationship is role modeling some very positive things for your kids, knowing your worth and being able to stand up for that. That is amazing for our daughters and our sons to be able to say, look, mom knew that this was not a good place. Mom knew that she was being held back. And I'm not saying that we willy-nilly give up on our vows, right? You do what you can. You go to therapy, you do the work behind the scenes, right? But when that comes to an end, and especially if there's any kind of abuse, then it's for your benefit. It's for your kids' benefit to get yourself to a safe place. And I will never say stay for the kids because that's not showing them how respectful and real relationships should be. And then in that next stage, when you are dating again, like this was one of those things is I wanted to show my kids what a real, true, loving relationship is supposed to look like. So you're role modeling how to be in a relationship, how to show the self worth for yourself when you're leaving a relationship, how to find that next loving relationship and how it should be for the kids. All while, like you're saying, the shame and guilt aspect of it, because you're doing what's in your best interest. In the long run, you're doing what's in your kids' best interest. So why are we having shame and guilt over that? Why are we having shame over doing what is right for us? Why are we having that in the eyes of other people? One of my first thoughts when my ex-husband, my soon-to-be ex at the time, are sitting on the deck talking about getting divorced, all I could think about was, what are the neighbors going to think? Why is
Mm,
that an issue? Why is that an issue in my marriage of what somebody else thinks? It is none of my business what somebody else thinks. I have to do and reconcile what's right with me and what's right for my family, right? And I can go through all of those steps to figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing before I leave. And then as I go through, like one of the hardest things was telling my parents, my mother, I'm getting divorced. Blah. Because there's an expectation in that older generation,
right.
potentially in a religious aspect, in a faith-based place. So
Right.
now I'm letting down my family, I'm letting down my kids, I'm letting down the neighbors. Really, who cares? I'm letting down my faith. I'm
Right.
I'm going against my vows. And that's a lot of heaviness to hold on to. But when you start working through that, who is this benefiting? This is benefiting me. This is benefiting my kids. And at the end of the day, that's what you have to reconcile with. I'm doing this to make a better life for myself, better life for my kids. Why am I feeling shame about giving them a better life and a better role model? And when you switch that context of who am I, who am I disappointing versus who am I helping? It starts to alleviate some of that shame because you have to do it for yourself. You have to do it for what is in your best interest and your kids' best interest.
I couldn't agree more with that. And honestly, the shame and guilt for me was seeing the heartache that
Hmm.
my kids endured during it, knowing that the dynamic of the family structure was broken. But deep down, because I felt for my kids, but there was this sense of freedom of like, I know they may feel like this now, but they're going to grow up one day understanding and looking
Yes.
back and seeing why mom did what she did. And for me, there was never a thought of what
Hmm.
people were going to think, because at that point I didn't care. Like,
Hmm.
to me, again, it was none of my business what people thought of me. It was the fact that I'm doing this for me because I deserve better. I know what I deserve now. I had those boundaries in place. I had those expectations in place, and I decided no more. And even though it did affect my children and, of course, myself, I knew deep down that in time heals all wounds. You will get past it. You will find a new normal, and now 2 years later, like, yeah, I'm on a groove and I'm with my kids and doing what I need to do. And it is hard because I have one child with me and the other child is with my ex. And
Mm.
that's even hard sometimes because we left it up to the kids. Hey, where do you want to go? Because we wanted them to be happy and in an environment where they felt good. And, when you're used to being a homemaker, like I was for the extent of our marriage, because realistically, we couldn't afford daycare. I stayed home with the
Mhm.
kids. And the transition of not being around them, that was the hardest thing for me,
It
was
really
knowing
is.
that I was around my kids every day, all the time, picking them up from school, making their lunches, helping them with homework. And now the dynamic of not seeing my daughter every day, it's not easy. What would you say for parents that are in a similar situation where their kids maybe have split up, or they're not, they're with one parent more than the other?
Mhm.
What would you say in both roles? How can you support that and get through that?
And that is the hardest part. When my kids went that first summer vacation with my ex, and they were gone for a whole week. I went to my girlfriend's apartment. I took my dog, I packed up. I couldn't bear to be in my house for that whole week of quiet, of just no noise, no kids, no coming and going. The routine was just gone. And I think that truly is, to your point, the hardest part is, how are we dealing with the kids, and how are we supporting them and letting them go? And I think two aspects there. One, you have to be able to let your kids go and have fun with the ex, have fun with, maybe there's a new family. Maybe it's been a few years and he's remarried, and maybe they have kids now and they're going off with a new family, and you have to be okay with that. Have fun with your dad, have a great time, really
Right.
bolster that relationship, because if you try and tear down that relationship, that's going to turn around and bite you in the end. They're
Oh
going to
yeah.
get to be adults, and they're going to see the manipulations that you put into place. Or maybe your ex is doing that and he's manipulating the situation a little bit. And you have to be okay with, he's talking bad about me when the kids are there.
Mhm.
They're going to know the truth eventually. We have to be the adults. We have to be above that fray, and we have to do what's in the best interest of the kids. And that's in their best interest isn't always defending ourselves. Well, dad's wrong. Dad said this. We have to bolster up that little bit of a smile, grin and bear it, and let them go. And then on the
Right.
back end, then there's that part with the kids, but then there's that part with us. So then there's the second part of, well, now what do I do that I'm home by myself without the kids? It's lonely.
Right.
It's quiet. It's just out. It's almost like one of those, you walk around the house and you're just waiting for something to happen, because it's not full of life like it usually is. And this is
Right.
when you get to start recreating yourself, right? Don't sit around the house and cry the mommy blues that my kids are gone. Hey,
Right.
what meetup group can I get involved with? What mentoring group? What book club? What evening out? Hey, what spa day? What time by the pool can I do by myself? What
Mhm.
book can I read that I haven't had a chance to read in eons? What are
Right.
these things that I can do for myself? And it's bringing in that self-care, that adventure, that whatever it is you want to create. And because we probably haven't had time to create that for ourselves in the past, because we've been busy mom on the go,
Oh yeah.
you don't know how to do that anymore. And so
Right.
now it's learning how to, who am I? Who am I now? Not what are my dreams from 10 years ago? What are my dreams now? What do I
Right.
want to do now? And it's this really imaginative and interesting space to be in, that you maybe weren't expecting. Take advantage of that quiet time. Go to a cooking class, go to a wine tasting, learn something new, do solo trips, do girls things. Once you get divorced, start dating if that feels comfortable to you. Find who you are and what you want through this process.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. Realistically, I have learned from when I divorced my ex-husband, I always have this sense of character to just never stoop to anybody's lower level. I
Mhm.
embrace grace. I am the bigger person, so to speak. I don't I do firmly believe that children really do understand the dynamics of both, and I will never stoop to a level where I would ever badmouth their father or anything like that, because I don't believe in that. I believe that, he's their dad, I'm their mom. That will never change. And I know so many people that do this, they go on a rampage of, oh, your dad is this or your mom is this. And it's just so immature and just so not worthy, because kids really do see in the action. And when
Yes.
you hold yourself as an individual, as a parent, to a higher standard of, I'm not going to stoop to that level and badmouth the other spouse or the ex-spouse. You know who you are. And Yeah, I've never done that, nor will I ever do that. It's been done to me. I'll admit it. And
Mhm.
you know what? All I can ever do is just be like, okay, well, am I surprised? Not really, but I'm going to hold myself to who I am and be true to myself and, embrace that time that my kids get to be with their dad. And yes, have
Mhm.
fun and do things and make memories because that's your dad. Like, and he loves you no matter what happened between him and I, your dad loves you, and the same goes for me. And as far as the time alone, since it's been like a couple of years in this pattern, I have to admit, I look forward to my time alone too. I really do. It's bittersweet because, as moms, our jobs don't stop. We are 24/7, and especially working women and doing
Mhm.
what we do as professionals, you're working with clients, you're doing all this, and then, you go into mom mode in between everything, and you're cooking dinner and you're playing both parts, so to speak. You're
Yes.
playing mom, you're playing dad as the other spouses, trying to do the best you can. But when I have quiet time now and my kids are away for the summer, I embrace that because I get to work. I really get to focus more on me and finding the things that I love, finding the things I forgot that I loved, just having peace and quiet, serenity, taking a bubble bath without being distracted, or blasting my music because I want to, or sitting down with a good book under a cozy blanket and just being. I feel there's balance. There's actually
Yes.
more balance in my life now than before. Have you found that to be true as well?
Oh, completely 100%. And so when the kids do come back, I'm rested, I'm restored, I'm
Please.
rejuvenated. And now I'm a better mom when they
Yes.
come back because I've had some quiet time. I've had an opportunity of reflection. I've had some me time. So now when the kids come back, I can have family time. I can have us time because
Yes.
now I don't need to take a break and go out and do things. I already did that while they were gone.
Right.
Now I can just love on them and be
Right.
with them when they're home. So, but I think to your other point, having that integrity and that grace to make it through these hard times as parents is so important. And again, that's role modeling so much for the kids to show
No.
them. And as they get older, and mine were already teenagers, people who have littles, it's hard for them to explain why they're splitting up. Well, dad
Right.
was sleeping with the secretary, or, somebody was doing something inappropriate. You can't explain that to the little kids. But
Right.
as you get older, they can start understanding those dynamics because I don't want my kids to fall into those same pitfalls of relationships down the road. So I think that there is an opportunity to be vulnerable with them without trashing the other parent,
Agreed.
but allowing them to enjoy time with dad, allowing them you to have your own time, but have those real conversations with them along the way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And when it comes to the co-parenting aspect of
Mhm.
this is what I personally find most challenging. And I'm sure for many other women, it's probably the same feeling. I could almost guarantee it. When the dynamics of the marriage don't work, you go through the divorce, and now you're trying to co-parent
Mm.
successfully. And personally speaking, I'll just say it, I'm great with communication. I make sure that I'm doing my due diligence, letting my ex know, hey, the kids are this, or, our son is this, or whatever. And it's not reciprocated. It isn't, and there's this level of acceptance for me as like, well, am I really surprised? And again, it's not bad mouthing, it's just accepting the person for who they are, right? You're not trying to change them. But how do you go about co-parenting successfully in the dynamic that is just, and I know that, if the dynamics of the relationship didn't work while y'all were married, how can you successfully co-parent and communicate, especially when your children are going back and forth? Like, what does that even look like?
Co-parenting is its own world.
Oh,
Like it's a brand new uh, way of dealing with the other person. And if you weren't dealing with them well the first time in the marriage, it's going to take a while to get to this place where you co-parent effectively, right?
Right.
Or as efficiently, at least as possible. You can do shared calendars, but that relies on the other person communicating. You can do the apps, the co-parenting apps, and sometimes those hold people's feet to the fire a little bit more, especially if there's some kind of nasty texts and certain things going on. It kind of makes people play nice in the sandbox. But communication really is the key there, is to be able to be, you don't have to be on the same page in your parenting style, but it's communicating that back and forth and having that respect for each other. Look, you don't have to be married, you don't have to be happy, you don't have to, you know, deal with them on a day in and day out basis, but you do have to communicate for the best interest of the kids. And it's always going
Right.
to come back to what's in the best interest of the kids. If you're going to be late and we're sitting in a car and it's a half hour and now little Susie and Joey are hungry because you were supposed to have been there. Well, now it's not just an inconvenience for me. Now that's disrespect for your kids as well.
Exactly.
Being on time, having that communication, and really finding that parenting styles that work for you, right? Parallel parenting is that what happens, it's like Vegas, right? Like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens at dad's house is dad rules. What happens at mom's house is mom's rules. And
Right.
that's about 50% of the co-parenting. But then moms get mad. Well, you know, you gave them Cocoa Puffs for breakfast and they went to bed at 9 instead of 8. The judges don't care.
Right.
Nobody cares. You know, and maybe in your situation, having been home with the kids, you had a structure and now that structure is broken, right? And you have to be okay with that. Not
Right.
every little thing can just tweak you in the same way maybe it used to.
Right.
They brushed their teeth, they took a shower, maybe they didn't. They're safe, they're secure, dad
Right.
loves them. He fed the macaroni and cheese out of a box for dinner. He didn't make them like, you know, free range chicken, whatever it is. You have to be okay with that. He's doing
Oh
the
yeah.
best he can in his world. They get
Absolutely.
back to when they get back to you, you can get back on your routine and they're okay in your world. Yes, about 25% or that cooperative co-parenting where everybody says it's at 8 o'clock bedtime, 7:30 is showers. Everybody brushes their teeth twice a day. Everybody's up at 6 for a, you know, wholesome omelet breakfast before they go out to school. It's about 25%. Good luck with that,
Not
right?
in on this house.
Not in most houses.
No way.
As long as long as it doesn't get to the conflicted co-parenting where it really is nasty and you do need to get the courts back involved
Right.
with those situations. Parallel co-parenting is 50%. You have to let some of those expectations down because that's going to allow you to breathe a little bit more freely and not get caught up in legal battles, spending more money, having more resentment, having more heartache. The kids are fine. If the kids are
Right.
fine, let dad do his thing. It's okay.
Exactly. And I'm
So,
so glad
you know,
you said
take that
that.
off of you.
And I'm so glad you said that because, realistically, that's how I've done all of
Mhm.
this. Realistic. And I know for most women, it's the same. Like, let you co-parent because it's a whole new world. You as the single mom are trying to do things to, stay on structure as best as possible. And so is the father in the picture. And it's navigating new territories as long as the kids are safe, as long as they're fed, as long as their basic needs are met, they're treated with respect, they're treated with dignity, they're heard, they're validated. That's all that
Mhm.
matters. And that's all that really should matter. Not this tit for tat or one spouse trying to control the other or the other spouse trying to, like, it should not be that way because it is about the kids. As long as
Yes,
they're safe, that's
100%.
all that matters. And I know a lot of women that are like that come to me and they're like, well, my ex is not doing that. And my ex, and I'm like, but that's none of your concern
That's okay.
anymore. Right. Like it is okay because we all have different parenting styles. We had different
Yes.
parenting styles when we were married. So what makes you think that our parents, now being separated, those parenting styles are still going to exist? just separately. And I think there's a form of acceptance there.
Yeah, and you have to be okay with that. And that's a learned thing. And that's a trust issue. And you're going to become more trustful in that when all of the other communications and timing and all of those other things are done, you're going to be more at ease. And it's going to be harder in the beginning. It's not something that you're familiar with, that he's familiar with. You're going to have some of those tough conversations, and you have to set up those boundaries. If he like pokes every last button when you speak with him on the phone, limit yourself to text. It's okay. You don't actually have to speak to him.
Right.
We get the people who drop the kids off at the police station or at a firehouse or at the library where there's somebody there, because of the fact that they feel more comfortable with that. As things progress, as things become more comfortable, perhaps now you can switch that up and make it, I'll drop off at your house, you can pick up at my house, whatever it is. You need to maybe start with those higher walls, those higher boundaries, and as that trust, as that communication gets better and more effective, you can bring them down and change those boundaries as you need them. But it's not about you and him anymore. You're already separated, you're already
Right.
divorced. It's about how you can make this work for the kids. My son just got back from some Marine Corps training. He's in college, ROTC. Literally, my ex had a dinner for him when he came home at his house. My guy and I went, his girl and him were there, the kids were there. Like, I don't want to say kumbaya. That is like way past, like, that's way too high of a bar, maybe. But we're
Right.
all having dinner together. She's pouring wine, I'm helping in the kitchen, the kids are doing their thing. Like, you can get into a place of acceptance um, and routine with this other person and co-parent, because my kids are in college, but they're going to graduate, they're going to get married, they're going to have kids. This person is in your life for the rest of your life. So
Right.
don't think, oh, I'm divorced, it's over. No, there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of contact you're going to have with this person.
Right.
Make it as easy as possible. I've seen people 20, 30 years later after divorce, and they still can't be in the same room with their ex.
Ugh.
And that makes it hard on the kids. That makes it
Right.
hard for Christmases and birthdays and all of these celebration times when you can't come to that acceptance of being in the same place with them. It's
Right.
it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Right. And that's so true because I feel like a lot of divorcees are so self-absorbed within their own stuff that they're not really
Mhm,
paying attention to the kids of what the kids need. It's not
mhm.
about, you have to have some sort of like level up and be an adult. Put on your big girl boy underwear or girl underwear at this point and be an adult about it because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, take it for face value. At least I did. It didn't work out. Okay, what can we do moving forward to be the best parents we can be, not together
Mhm.
anymore for the sake of the children? How can we show up for them as two individual adults and do what's best for the kids? It's not about him, it's not even about me, it's about the kids. So and that's showing in your character too, I feel.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be adult about things and effectively communicate when you guys are not together, more effectively communicate when it does involve the kids. Hey, I'm going out of state, or hey, I'm doing this, or hey, I'm doing that, and let the other parent know. It's being an adult. It's not about you anymore. It's about, and I love the fact that you said like you can get with your new person in your life and your ex can get with their new person and come together and just be adults. They're not, you don't need to be BFFs. No one's that's not an expectation. It's not about that. There's a sense of chivalry for the sake of the kids that mom and dad, along with their new
Yes.
people, are coming together to celebrate the child.
Mhm.
And that's the importance of it. That's the key right there. I love you. I love that you said that. What
And
are
it
some
takes
other
time.
tips? Of course. Oh gosh, it doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-mm.
What would you say to newly single moms, how can they excel in this new role of being a single mom, trying to do everything, and what would you say, if the children do ask, well, what happened? What
Mm.
advice would you give? Because again, I know that depends on age. So how could you go about it in a way where you're not lying to your children, but you're also not bad mouthing the other parent?
And that's a slippery slope. And that's just such a hard line to walk, because you start going a little left or a little right, and all of a sudden it's like they're your therapist. And that's not what kids want. Kids don't
Right,
want to be the one who is the shoulder to cry on. And they never should be. That's not their role, right?
right.
But as the kids get older, if they start asking you questions, they can sniff out a lie better than the CIA.
Oh
They
yeah.
know, they know when you're not telling them things. So it's just funny. I just contributed a chapter to a parenting book, and it was all about having these vulnerable conversations, which is kind of funny that we're bringing this up. But one of the things that I always tell people is be honest with the kids. Hey, look, this isn't my, this isn't just my story. This is your dad's story too. This isn't, but what I can do is one, tell you from my point of view. And some things are going to be off limits because of age or because that story hasn't played itself out yet. We're not fully to that point where I feel comfortable telling you everything. Or
Right.
because this involves somebody else who I don't have their permission to tell their story, I'm only going to tell you what I feel is really right in the moment to explain to you. So, hey, yeah, there are boundaries for the kids too. It's not boundaries just aren't for your ex. Boundaries are for the kids.
Right.
They don't need to know everything. They don't need to know everything now. And they don't need all of the yucky details that happened between mom and dad. I had a girlfriend who called me up and said, I just found a phone a burner phone basically for my husband. And there's pictures of him, a woman half his age, and a 3-year-old child in another country. She goes, what do I tell my kids? I'm like, when did you find this phone? She goes, a half hour ago. I'm like, you tell your kids nothing.
Right.
Right now, it's all speculation. You haven't worked anything out. You don't have a plan. When you're going to your kids to tell them things, it's because you have a plan in effect, right? If they're asking you questions, yeah, you could play that a little like as it comes, but it's figuring out what that boundary is, not over divulging, not allowing them to be your therapist, and really keeping it age appropriate.
Absolutely. I think for me, my youngest hasn't yet, my oldest has. And, I was very surface. I'm like, I just knew I deserved better. And,
Mhm,
the way I was being treated was not something that I deserved. And I did this not only for me, but for you and your sister, because I
mhm.
wanted to be an example of what is acceptable for women and what isn't acceptable. And, I kept it very light just to let them know, like, I know my self-worth and, getting into the complexities of the why, when, how there's this knowing of action speaks everything to children. Like,
Mhm.
kids are smart and they see things for what they truly are. And I feel that just children observing both parents and their character and the way they are, they'll eventually figure out the why,
Yeah.
and that's just like how I've left it, because again, I will never, and I don't feel anybody should badmouth the other parent. Y'all created these beautiful kids together. That in itself is a gift. That is a gift from God. I truly feel that. And at one point there was a moment of happiness in your relationship because you created these beautiful children together, and I'm sure that that doesn't, resonate for everybody, but in my situation it did. And for most people that I know, it has. Just having this sense of knowing who you are, knowing that, this is a new journey. You have to do the best. It's not about perfection, doing the
Right.
best that you can with what you got, protecting your children, but letting them grow, letting them be individuals, I think is just the way to go about it. So I love the fact that you lay that out for everybody.
Yeah, because you do need to have some openness and some vulnerability with them. But mama's got to keep some things private. You have to keep some things private. And I'm always an advocate to keep the relationship with the other parent as good as possible for as long as possible. At some point, the kids are going to see if there is something going on in that other household, they're going to see that parent for who they are. And they're going to say, you know
Yes.
what? I don't want to go anymore. Or I want to limit overnights, or I don't want to be there when the girlfriend's there. I don't let them have that voice, but
Right.
you can't manipulate that. You have to allow that relationship the best possible outcome that is there. And the kids can start learning how to draw their own boundaries as they get older. And I think that's perfectly fine.
I agreed with that completely. Now, what would you say if one spouse, because I've heard this too with a lot of my clients as well, what would you say if your child comes to you and goes, Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad said this about you, that this is what they said, this is why you guys got, and so the other parent is not respecting that boundary and just letting it all out there to the child, which really is horrible. What would
Mhm.
you say? So now your child is approaching you going, well, dad told me this, or mom told me this about what happened. How do you even respond to that? Because I have a lot of people in that situation too.
Yeah. And then it's just having the conversation with your kids in regards to, I think dad may have divulged too much. Some of these things are private and we need to keep them in our family. And that was at an adult level. We should have kept it at an adult level. I'm sorry that you got brought in to this level of conversation. What can I explain?
Right.
What questions do you have for me? Let's talk this out a little bit because you don't want it to be he throws a grenade across and then you don't respond to it at all. Um, if it's something that's egregious enough, I don't go to my ex with a lot of things that the kids come home and tell me because they're telling me in, I don't want to say secrecy, but they're just free flowing with what happened at dad's. And then if something comes back and hurts my feelings, I'm not going to throw my kids under the bus and run to my ex all the time.
Right.
Right. Like, oh, well, dad did da 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 da. Oh, really? Well, he wasn't supposed to, but we're just going to let that go. Because sometimes, like you were saying before, you have to be the bigger person. But
Absolutely.
if it's something that is egregious enough, then you need to address that with him. And maybe you need to do that through your mediator. Maybe you need to do that through an online, even counseling session with a third party, with a pastor, with a family, a third party family member, third party friend. Hey, look, this was said. I don't feel that's appropriate. Um, do we need to talk this out with somebody on what those boundaries are? Because you can say, oh, there's a boundary here, and he's gonna do it again. And even if you have this third party thing, he could still do it again, but it's putting him on notice that somebody else knows what that boundary is. So that way he's not as maybe easy to step over it because now he's not just accountable to you. Now he's accountable to somebody else. And if you go back to that therapist or that third party and say, hey, then now this was said, well, why? Why did you need to go down that rabbit hole with the kids when we have already talked about this? That's
Right.
not cool. And now he's on notice with somebody else. So there is opportunities to address it. Do you address it with the kids, or is it to a level where you need to address it with him, or is there another level where you need to address it with a through a third party potentially?
No, I completely agree with you. And guys, I want to let you know this, this is both ways too. This is not just about women. Women can do this too, their ex-spouses
Yes.
too. Like this is not, I want to give them the tools to let them know because it is so complex and it's a new world that you're just trying to navigate and do the best you can. And you know that ex will always be part of your life because they're the
Yes.
father, you're the mother, vice versa. There will always be dynamics, and you know accepting that, okay, it didn't work for whatever reason, yet we have kids, we need to be adult about this. They're going to move on, find someone, you're going to move on, maybe find someone. And just this level, it's being an adult, because at the end of the day,
Please.
it really does affect the children. And just it doesn't need to be this tit for tat, back and forth, all this other BS. I think a lot of people forget. They try to get even, they try to get vengeful, and all it's doing is showing your children your true colors. So I want
Right.
I want people to understand that too. Like if you have a sense of grace about yourself and okay, well, am I surprised of this behavior from the other partner? Not really. Like take a moment and really stop to think about it. Like, does this behavior shock me? Like you could almost bet on it, and then just, you kind of chuckle about it, like, that didn't take long because you kind of, you really do. And it's just having this sense of character, like, okay, like, you know what, that person's going to be that person, but I'm me and I'm going to do things a certain way. And I'm going to stay true to my nature because it's about the children. And guys, kids, they're not stupid. They know, they are like sponges. They observe your actions. I really truly feel this more than your words, especially when they're younger. They observe the actions of the parents,
Yes.
and they form
Completely.
their own opinions on this stuff.
My daughter, I know, and she's even admitted it to this point. Um, he and I were having one of those whisper fights, going through the divorce, so we went into another room and we're like, just whispering back and forth. All of a sudden, like I see a shadow over here, the TV was turned off, and my daughter was at the top of the stairs. I'm like, those little guys like are listening in. So they'll be sneaky, they'll try and see things they shouldn't, hear things they shouldn't. They're going to observe just your general demeanor about things. When we told the kids that we were getting separated, my daughter was like, well, I've been waiting for this for 2 years. Like, they know when things are in
Wow.
discord and when
Right.
things are going well. She was like, "Yeah, whatever, this is fine." Like, she had her moment of tears and had her moments of things throughout the way throughout the time, but I'm like, "Oh, well, okay, well, you knew that before I did," but, you know, she just, they are observant, so you do have to be careful with what you allow them that world that you allow them to see of yours.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Joy, I am so, so grateful for our time together today. I couldn't agree more. I'm definitely, I let all my viewers know all of your website, how to get a hold of you will be in the description box so that people can get a hold of you, because I think what you do is so beautiful, that you turned your pain into purpose. And I love the fact that we as women are doing that, not only taking our pain into purpose and helping other women get through this. I just love the fact that you're helping these women create the best lives out of a really horrible circumstance. And I couldn't be more grateful for you to be on the Purposeful Wisdom podcast today. Thank you so, so much for your time. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for viewing this. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, help this channel grow. Spread the message. We're all here to build community, to help one another, to help each other grow. And I couldn't thank you guys more. So thank you so much. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, guys.